All right, we're back with Daniel Pomerantz from Honest Reporting. Welcome to
Hey
the show,
guys,
man.
good to be here.
Jerusalem, right?
I'm in Jerusalem. At the end of the month, I'm moving to Tel Aviv. But right now, I'm still in Jerusalem.
The
I've been
holy
living
city.
here 5 years. The holy city. That's the problem, is that I'm not a very holy guy, and like on weekends, everything shuts down. There's really not much to do except go to dinners and pray. And if you're into that, it's cool. But if you're not, it's just there's not a whole lot here. People tell me there is, but I just haven't found it, and it's been 5 years.
And it took 5 years to figure that out.
I could have told you that. I've never been there. I've never lived there. I've
been
been
a
there.
little slow.
Yeah.
Turns out Mecca's not a party town either. Right here.
Well, it is once a year.
I was gonna do spring break in Mecca, but
Salt Lake City just doesn't party like I thought it would.
I can't believe I went to BYU freshman year and I thought college was all fun. But is the quarantine, is it good to be in a place that shuts down normally 2 days a week anyway during a quarantine? It's an advantage,
I'll
right?
tell you, yeah, I got good practice. Like people are all complaining about, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything. I'm like, I've been doing that every weekend for 5 years. I'm all set. To me, this is just Saturday, except 7 days a week.
So what's going on? You guys are out of are you working your way out of quarantine? Like I feel like Israel's ahead of us right now, right? In the United States in terms of the start. Did you start earlier, ending earlier, or start later, ending earlier?
We started a couple weeks earlier, but also what we did really well is we shut down real fast because in America, people are worried the economy, it's racist, you can't let people in. And Israelis just like, screw that. We're just shutting down.
It's racist.
And
I think you're mixing stories, but yeah.
He's in America. He's not in America right now, so he gets his news filtered.
Keep going.
Yeah.
So we no, I meant it was because they were saying in the beginning that it was racist to keep Chinese people out of America or whatever.
Oh right.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot about
so
that.
back then, there's a whole racism keeps coming back, but no, there's different racism. And so Israel just shut down. And so we started flattening the curve a lot sooner. And now we're opening up a little bit. And while we were flattening the curve, the problem was that the religious communities weren't shutting down. They're like, well, you can't not have a wedding. You can't not go to synagogue and pray. So they kept doing that. And then everyone in B'nai Brak, and remember we were talking before about Shtisel from Mea Shearim, they were all getting sick.
Oh, Shtisel.
Oh, Shtisel.
Shocking this Shtisel didn't listen to the orders.
So all the religious people are getting sick, but then the religious rabbis caught on finally, and they said to their communities, okay, stay in. And the good thing about religious people is when you tell them, when they're a community leader, when the local rabbi says do it, they'll do it. So then they started getting a lot better. And then we came up with this brilliant idea to reopen the schools. And don't think about this, but you can't reopen the economy, reopen the schools, because all the parents have kids and a lot of them can't afford daycare. So without schools, the parents can't go back to work. They got to be home with the kids, right? So they start opening the schools. And that week, by total coincidence, there was a heat wave. So they said, all right, because of the heat wave, we're making a special rule for 1 week you don't have to wear your masks. So they send all the kids who are bacteria factories anyway back into the schools, tell them they don't have to wear their masks. And exactly 2 weeks later on the nose, which is the incubation period, the numbers start going up again. So that's what we're dealing with now a little bit.
So
go ahead, Kat. Go for it.
I was gonna say, wasn't there a teacher who was positive who went into one school and spread 100 kids in Israel somewhere? He knew he had it, he didn't mention it.
It was something like that. And he spread there were 200 cases that day, and over 100 of them were all from that school and all from that one teacher. So now they're testing the schools like crazy, but it might not be as bad as it sounds, because for one thing, when you do that many tests, you're going to get a lot of positive results. So it might not be that there are really more cases. It might be we just know about more now, because they're testing 10,000 people a day, which for the size of Israel's population is a lot. And also the good news is that the number of new cases each day is not growing exponentially. It's kind of staying the same each day. So that means that probably they're doing a pretty good job shutting down schools when they discover something, putting people in quarantine for a couple of weeks when they get sick, and they're just kind of keeping the spread from growing exponentially. At least that's what it looks like. I mean, who knows? Tomorrow it could all change, but
Because I was just thinking about the mask thing you said about schools. And I mean, isn't it always hot in Israel, especially this time of year? Like this, I mean, what's a heat wave even mean? Like it's just hot. So how are they going to get around that?
I learned a whole new meaning for hot when I moved here. And it's funny now when I walk around Israel with a friend from America on a hot day, usually I'm like, okay, I'm doing all right. And my friend is like dying. Because when you're just here for enough years, you kind of get used to it. So this was a day that was so hot that even Israelis found it hot. So that's what hot means. It basically means like it was over 100 degrees for like a week in a row. It happens once in a while.
It seems to me like that's going to be a problem. I mean, like not having kids wear masks is for sure an issue. But in America, Cap, do you think you can get a group of 5-year-olds together and they'll all wear their masks properly, even if they're trying to wear their masks? Like adults in America are still like, I don't know how to put on a mask, which frankly, if you can't put on a mask, like go back to kindergarten. But it's a pretty simple thing to put on. Adults can't figure it out.
I mean, I've found that kids, the good thing about kids is that they follow, like they want to fit in kind of thing. So like if enough of the kids are wearing their masks, they will wear their masks because they're all wearing their masks. But if you start leaving it up to them, they don't want to wear masks. I mean, it's uncomfortable, obviously. It's they sweat, all the reasons. And we're adults. We understand the risks and whatever. They don't really understand it. I mean, Teddy is very neurotic. He will wear his mask. He wears it better than me. But most kids I've seen outside, whenever it's hot out, they don't wear them. So I can't imagine wearing them in a school day. And I can't imagine a teacher being able to enforce it when you got like 25 kids in the class or whatever, trying to make sure each one of them is wearing their masks. I don't envy that position.
Oh, well, the teachers aren't wearing them either.
No. Well, there you go.
Well, by choice? By choice?
There's your problem. And you got, Israelis are not famous for like being a culture that likes to follow rules. This isn't like Japan.
I'm familiar.
Where like, I heard there's a news story where in Japan they didn't like have any legal penalties to enforce anything, and so we shouldn't have it either. I'm like, are you kidding me? In Japan, you don't need to. You tell people to do it, they'll do it. In Israel, people will argue with you just to argue, even if they agree with you, they'll argue with you.
Yeah.
So you got people wearing masks like down around their chin because they want to take a quick breath, and then you just leave it there, smoking a cigarette.
Dan, what they'll do here is in the grocery stores, and this is like 100% the times I've been, they will wear all the employees will wear the mask, but then whenever they want to talk to you, they pull it down to talk.
Right. Yeah. Like the one time you should be wearing it.
Completely. They're like, this is in the checkout line. They were like, oh, it's going to be $25.15, and then they put it back up. I'm like, what are you doing? This is not.
Yeah. It's a bit of a common sense thing that, I mean, it's better than nothing, but yeah, that's it's surprising that you tell me this because I was telling Turner off air that I thought. I assume because of Israelis and national defense, and you all serve in the army, and you've dealt with terrorism threats before, that like there's a purpose of sacrifice that Israelis have that Americans don't have, where you're just like, all right, the government tells me to do something, I'm gonna do it. You're saying that's not true. That's a rosy picture.
There's a little bit of this. I tell you what, there's a little bit of each. There's a little bit of this sense of like, this Middle Eastern macho pride. Like, I'm not gonna let anyone tell me what to do. You see in the army too, people like argue with their commanders, and we sort of have a joke that the Israeli army is really good because it's the least bad army in the Middle East. But that's like,
I know some people disagree with that, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the kind of joke that people like when you're in the army, people make that joke because everyone's sort of like self-effacing humor. But one thing the Israelis are good at is, we're all used to like running to bomb shelters once in a while. So when you tell Israelis like stay in your house, we're just like the safe room, or can I just what in the world are you talking about? Because like that never happens in America where you have to like stay in your house.
Yeah, I mean my grandparents built a bomb shelter in like 1935 or something, and beyond that, I don't think it's been done since then in the United States.
Well, I mean, you got survivalists and stuff, but they never use the thing. They just build it and are happy to know they have it.
Yeah, and we make fun of them.
It's like a man cave or something. Like they make it cool, but we're not.
Like here, everyone's got a shelter. Like my bedroom, my apartment is like a regular apartment. My bedroom is actually a reinforced bomb shelter, but they design it so you can't really tell. So it looks like a regular bedroom, but if you know what you're looking at, you realize like the walls are made out of this special construction, and my window is like shatterproof glass. So, somebody launches a rocket, like I can go in the bedroom and I'll be okay. So everyone's got them, and it's not like an unusual thing. And even like from the economy point of view, Israeli economists are comparing this situation to 1973, which is the Yom Kippur War. Completely disrupted life, shut all the businesses down for a while. Then it ended. Then there was a recession for a while, and we came back. Whereas in America, I don't know the last time America just had everything shut down for a while. Maybe World War II.
Yeah, we don't have wars on our land, so we don't have that. Yeah, that we're not used to that kind of situation.
So, Dan, what about reopening in general? When did you guys start reopening?
We started reopening right about the middle of May.
Okay, so like 3 weeks ago, something like that, 3 or 4 weeks,
something like that.
Yeah,
a little bit more than that, and it was maybe a little bit earlier than that, but it was right in the middle of May when the schools opened. So that was sort of the big sign that we're use it so you can go and do more things than you use. It's here to be a little self-critical. So we look around, people not wearing the masks, people screwing up, and we go, oh my God, we're in such bad shape, we're the worst, And then we look around at other countries in the world and we realize actually somehow we're actually doing pretty okay comparatively.
So are people back to work? We missed a little bit of what you were saying there, but are people back to work?
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, in my company, we had this dilemma: do we bring everybody back or not? And my CFO was saying, hey, we should make a schedule where we have half the people in, half the time. And I said, you know what, why don't we just give everyone the option? Because chances are half the people just want to get out of the house and away from their kids. And the other half of the people love working from home. So we just gave people the option. And so far, basically, we have about half the people coming in and half not, which is sort of what we expected. And that's sort of how most offices are right now. And you have to take your temperature in the morning and sign a form from the Ministry of Health saying I took my temperature and I'm not sick today. And you have to wear a mask on the way in and out of work. And you're supposed to keep the 2 meters apart. So you follow all those rules. But other than that, we're basically it feels pretty much normal, except with those little extra things going on.
And what happens if you sign it and you were sick? Like if you lie to the Department of Health?
I don't think anything happens if you lie on the form, but if you get sick, or if they can prove that you were within a certain distance of someone who was sick for more than a certain amount of time, they send you to quarantine. And quarantine means you got to stay in your house for 2 weeks. And apparently, like the Shin Bet, which is like the Israeli FBI, is going around to people's houses and knocking on their doors to make sure they're really at home, because people want to cheat the system. And if you break that, then you could get, fined a few $1,000s or I haven't heard of anyone going to prison for it, but theoretically you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think someone in my sister-in-law's family, I believe, I heard the story. They got a ticket during the quarantine. They were in a town that's not their town. And somehow which is a level of quarantine we don't have here. Like you could get like a police officer ask for your identification, I guess. So that's obviously, I assume you guys have a level of enforcement that we don't have here too, for once you have to be quarantined.
We do, but this country, it's so absurd. We have all this enforcement stuff. And then, on Passover, the prime minister and the president both showed videos of them at their Passover dinners with their families. And everyone's like, wait a minute, your kids are adults and they don't live at home. So they not only did they break the rules, they put it on their Instagram pages. It just didn't occur to them. And so the whole country is going nuts about this. And to me, the crazy thing wasn't just that they broke the rules, but that it just didn't even occur to them to try and hide it. and so then Passover comes. Passover is a holiday where you make a lot of dishes out of eggs. You got like matzah brai and those sorts of things. And there was an egg shortage for some reason. So the Mossad went and started airlifting in eggs for the Mossad's like the Israeli CIA. They were airlifting in eggs from Europe. And there were egg riots, in ultra-Orthodox communities. People were massed outside, hundreds of people fighting over to get these eggs. And first of all, it's there's no social distancing going on there, right? 2 weeks later, not when you're fighting. A couple weeks later, they had some big thing in a religious neighborhood. It was somebody's funeral or something going on, and the police were trying to break it up. And so to protest against the idea that the police were trying to stop them, people came out and started throwing eggs at the police.
Whoa.
And I'm sitting there like, you're just fighting to get the eggs. Now you're throwing the eggs at people.
Yeah, those are valuable eggs.
It could be worse.
I
They
know.
could be completely disbanded, like in Minneapolis. So
Yeah. You don't know who the Mossad killed to get those eggs. Like some other country got you. So that's we don't give anybody ideas. The looting has calmed down here. We don't want to get eggs thrown at anybody.
Kaplan,
here in Israel,
Yeah,
we got no looting here except for eggs. That's the only
nice.
thing we loot.
Cap, what happened with the because you were saying that the super religious in Israel eventually decided to like call it off and social distance and stay away and all that kind of stuff. What happened in Brooklyn, Cap? I don't know if I remember the end of that story because I know for a while they were still having funerals, and then
they had
De Blasio told them not to, and then now he's like Hitler Part 2.
Well, they had a funeral where they this is in hindsight with all that's going on now, it's interesting because they planned it with the NYPD. They had an outdoor funeral. They had this big idea. They thought it was going to be genius, and they like didn't factor in how many people were going to come and how bad it would look. So then like the NYPD changed their minds and were like, no, we can't have this, and then it was a disaster. But I think they put the brakes on all that stuff for a while. I know that the police have raided some of the ultra Orthodox for having schools and whatnot. I'm sure with the protests, it annoys them. I don't know if you saw these Hasidic guys in Brooklyn, these kids, they came up with like, they put a sign up, they said, love of George Floyd. And then they just made like a kid's carnival. So they could have like, they're like, we found a loophole.
It's a protest.
Jesus.
But yeah, I don't know. Like people get so mad at the Hasidic guys, but I'm like, you can't get mad at them anymore because it's just like, social distancing outside is over in America, at least.
Well, I think the difference is fighting for your life versus.
But I mean, well, whatever. But the point is that we'll see what happens. I mean, people got really mad in America about the thing in Missouri, the Ozarks, the real Ozarks, but there wasn't some crazy outbreak to my knowledge there. So
yeah, has there been any of that in Israel? Is there anyone like any videos of people just like Gal Gadot just partying on the beach?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We were sort of picking on the ultra Orthodox a little bit, but the thing the Orthodox have going for them is that once you get the community rabbi to say, "Hey, everybody stay home," everyone will stay home. Whereas in the secular communities, you've got like you go to the beaches in Tel Aviv, people are going out, they're on the beach, they're hanging out. Like you can't stop people once the weather gets nice, unless you like massively go start giving everyone tickets or something. So yeah, people are out there, but what we seem to be seeing is that the real problem spreading happens inside of closed rooms. So schools, synagogues, just anything indoors. But when you're out on the beaches, for some reason, it's just, there's enough air moving around. It doesn't seem to catch as much.
All right. So that was actually my question, because there was some study that we've been talking about on here, maybe a few weeks ago, or I would say like 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe now, by some, I don't know, it's some doctor in the United States, basically saying that they studied, I think, South Korea, the United States, and a couple other countries, studied where the outbreaks were happening, and 90% of them were happening at indoor events, indoor gatherings. And my question was gonna be, is that what is bearing out in Israel as well, now that it's reopening? Is as long as you're outdoors doing stuff? Because I'm trying to do stand-up comedy outdoors, and I want to see if that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does seem to be what's happening. I think, I'm always a little bit wary of what scientists say, because so many scientists are saying so many things, and they're all contradicting each other. But if you just wait a little while and watch events unfold and then ask yourself, all right, what am I really seeing? Then you kind of start to see what's happening. And in Israel, what we're seeing is that every time there's, you have to wait 2 weeks after something happens before you see the results of it. But every time something happens 2 weeks later, you see it's always the indoor stuff that's causing the big spread, and the outdoor stuff, as bad as it looks on TV, doesn't seem to be doing that as much.
Yeah.
But watch me get proven wrong tomorrow.
No, but it's an interesting point you make, though, to back up a little, because like you say about something people believe in, and to those Hasids, like the funeral for their rabbis is like the biggest, it's like the most important thing. It is something they believe in. So when their rabbis tell them to do something, they listen. We don't have that. That's part of the problem we're having in America. It's like, some people believe, it's like people just want to do their own thing. So that we're trying to struggle with the reopening. Some people really believed in the quarantine for a while. Now they're kind of like, well, I gotta get back to life. So
but also we did have, like the evangelical Christians still going to church and then just getting like obliterated on social media.
And we never had an example of, did we have any of their leaders step up and say we can't do that? Or I don't know. I haven't followed it.
I think, yes. Eventually, I think it kind of slowed down or maybe stopped. I mean, it all broke down into how evangelical you were. I think the mainline religions didn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I also, Dan, did you see, I saw some clip online once during the height of everything where like, it was like a Tel Aviv like bar almost like outside on the beach. And it was all people who had coronavirus just hanging out. It's like Antibody Island. And that's like been my idea for like a dating app this whole time.
Yeah.
So maybe the Israelis, I feel like, would catch into this. If you could, maybe your friends in Tel Aviv, we can start, maybe do a beta program there. Because that's the future of dating. You have the antibodies, you go party.
Okay, COVID, we're calling it.
Okay, COVID, yes.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Did we lose you?
Okay, COVID. They called Corona hotels, where they were, you know how the USS Comfort, to Israel, we didn't do it with boats, we did it with all into field hospitals. And so you have these hotels where everybody in the hotel had COVID, and people had milder cases where like they were doing yoga and having, I don't know, little parties and stuff. Some of them were like super shut down. Others were like more chill.
Did that work?
Did it work? As in like, well, I mean, it created more capacity because for a while we were worried there wouldn't be enough ventilators or enough beds in hospitals. I mean, it was Italy that was scaring everyone, like hospitals turning people away who had to like go die on the street. So that's what everyone was worried about. But it worked in the sense that there was a place to put people, and then we flattened the curve, and now they're closing them all because the hospitals, as they are, have more than enough capacity now.
Yeah, because sorry, I was just saying, because the Italy thing, I remember what everyone was scared about was they were saying how Italy has this aging population and people all live close to each other. And I mean, come to think of it, Israel's very similar. I feel like you have like a lot of families. It's not like America where we live so far from our parents. I feel like a lot of people live near each other. Obviously, a small country, and yet Israel, I think, has one of the like best death rates, right, or lowest death rates of this virus, next to like China is number one, of course.
Allegedly.
Russia's number two, allegedly. But I think Israel's actually number one of countries you trust their numbers on. Is the last I checked. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I did something right, is what I'm trying to say. So.
Well, yeah, it had to do with shutting things down quickly. You know what happened? That Italy really got kind of a gut punch because there are these leather factories in Italy that, you can say it's made in Italy because it's an Italian leather factory, but it's actually a Chinese factory. And a lot of the workers are Chinese, and a lot of them are from Wuhan. And they commute over from Wuhan and like spend a few months at a time working in these factories in Italy. Mm. And because China wasn't really letting people know about the virus at first, there were just hundreds of people from Wuhan spending a lot of time in Italy working in factories. So by the time anyone knew about the virus, Italy had already gotten infected, past the point that they could shut things down and stop it.
Huh, I didn't actually know that. Did you, sir?
Yeah.
No. What about, I read an article about the airline industry.
Oh yeah.
And this theory I actually love, but the article made it sound like everyone in Israel hates it. But the theory was that they want to open up country by country with like Middle Eastern or European countries that they call like a green country, meaning like they're clear, like Lithuania is clear of the virus. So you can travel from Israel to Lithuania, but that's it. And then when a third country gets cleared, then you can travel. I think I've been saying from the beginning, we should do this with the United States. Like Montana right now is clear. So they should open up Montana and whatever state comes next. And those two can travel between each other. It's logistically impossible to do this in the United States. But is this is this working, or have they tried this?
I mean, they haven't tried it yet. They're talking about it. But I don't think there are enough countries that are clear enough for long enough that they're there yet. But the idea is they're thinking as they begin to open up travel, first it will be with places like Australia and New Zealand who have really good rates. And I think Germany has pretty good rates. And then only later on, we start adding countries like England or America that got hit pretty hard.
I mean, so airport's completely closed. It's totally closed.
No, there's actually... There's a little bit of flying going in and out. I actually have an employee who went home to visit his family in London just now. My question is, I think when he comes back from London, he's going to be required to stay at home for 2 weeks. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I think it is. So then he'll just have to be working by Zoom and whatever. So you can travel. It's not super convenient. I think you got to wear a mask on the plane the whole time. It kind of sucks. And then you have to come back and go into quarantine, or at least you had to last time I checked. But it can be done, and it's being done a little bit.
I mean, it just seems like this is the if it's possible, this is the way to do it. My cousin lives in Montana, and she's a nurse, and she's saying, like, yeah, everything's great now. We have 0 cases. We've had 0 deaths for like a month, but I think it was starting this week or last week, they're opening back up because of tourism, because they can get like people to all the national parks. So she's like, yeah, we're just expecting a giant flood of new cases when everybody comes in. But if you could only open to the other state that is also clear.
Yeah.
And then even if that would make New York basically the last people. Well,
hey,
it looked a few weeks ago like the last people.
We're doing better than a lot of states right now.
We're zooming ahead.
Yeah, New York's getting it together. What the heck happened?
Look at us, baby.
I heard Cuomo telling me this morning in his briefing how great y'all are doing.
You get the Cuomo briefings in Israel. Look at that.
Wow.
The Cuomo show's international.
We had a phone call for a bunch of our donors for my company. So we're a nonprofit, and everyone's asking, okay, what's going on with COVID? So I just did my Cuomo impression. I said, well, let me tell you how we're doing. We've got some good numbers. We're doing fact-based analysis. We're being smart. We're opening up smart.
You need a joke.
That everyone.
You need one of his his terrible jokes.
Yeah, you need a good dad joke.
Say today's Saturday.
Today's Saturday. I know it's Saturday because I don't wear a tie on Saturdays, so my tie tells me it's Saturday.
My no tie.
Which is a very illogical joke. There's no logic in that because he's the one who put on his own tie.
Yeah, and today was day 100. So
and he's been doing that bit for like months, and no one laughs anymore. And every Saturday now, he's shocked that no one laughs. He's like, "What? You don't like that joke?
That killed in March. That joke."
But didn't he get declared like the most eligible bachelor in the world or in the country or something like that?
There was a lot of there was a peak of people gagging for Cuomo, as they say.
Gagging for Cuomo.
I think.
But is that past?
I think
that's over a little.
I think once our numbers pass 400,000 correct cases, that gagging for Cuomo kind of waned a little bit.
What do you guys have, like, what is in Israel? Is there a mayor of Jerusalem giving updates? Is there a it's not Netanyahu, is it?
Yeah, you've got Netanyahu. He gets on TV and he says, "Oh, listen, this isn't a vacation. Stay at home."
Great.
And that's it. He's like he's got a very I don't give a crap kind of attitude. Like, I don't care if you like me, I don't care what you think. Get in your house and stay there.
Right, and that's pretty good.
You know, the thing is that for Israelis, it kind of works because Israelis aren't kind of looking to be coddled. We're looking to see that somebody knows what the heck he's doing and does it.
Hey, yeah.
So that's kind of working here.
Stop running around, please.
I mean, I think in America, people were a little bit anxious about Trump because he's so all over the place, and that kind of works on other issues. But on this issues, you kind of want a guy who's a little bit focused. Focus isn't his strong suit.
Yes. I don't know what issues Trump's all over the place thing works on. We're still trying to figure that out. We're going to find the crisis. That's the solution for it. But what about, so do you think, I need to know this. My mom's listening. She needs to know my brother's going to be his wife's having a baby in September, God willing. Do you think we're going to be allowed Americans into Israel by September so my mom can visit? What's the Israeli?
Oh man, talking about September. Yeah. Talking about September is like talking about 10 years from now. Like, nobody knows. I mean, I could maybe take not necessarily. We just don't know. I could maybe take a guess about what'll happen a month from now, and even that's a stretch. But you'd start talking 3-4 months. Who knows? I think there's they keep coming up with new treatments, and they're obviously working on vaccines and stuff. So one of these days that's going to come out, and that'll change everything. And the testing's gotten fast. Ben Gurion University, which is down in the Negev Desert, has developed a 1-minute test. And they developed a 1-minute test, and I think it hasn't been fully, approved and, FDA kind of stuff. But apparently they're testing it and it works. Once you have a 1-minute test, you could come into the country. They'll know if you have it. If you don't have it, you're clear.
You just give the test at the airport when you get in, and
it'll be something like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. This whole taking a temperature is also illogical. We all know that it might not show up for like 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 8 days, 10 days. So taking a temperature when they walk into a building is nice, but ultimately I don't know what it does. I mean, it might prevent people who are currently sick. I guess it prevents them.
It's gonna. It, eliminate some of the people. I went into the pharmacy because I ran out of masks. So I walk in and they take my temperature, and then the guy's like, "Well, you can't come in. You don't have a mask." I'm like, "Well, that's why I'm coming here, is to buy a mask."
Oh no.
He's like, "But you can't come in without a mask." So how am I supposed to get it? It was very Abbott and Costello. It's like very who's on first, what's on second.
Can you just hand the guy money and be like, "Go get me a mask"? Like,
no, you know what I did? Because it's Israel, I just argued with him for a while. And finally he handed me a Kleenex and said, "Hold this over your face."
Problem solving.
I'm just like, that Kleenex has got your hands all over it now.
Yeah.
So I'm holding his like dirty hand Kleenex on my face. And then I'm searching around. I can't find who's selling the masks. And finally one guy's telling me to go to one end of the store. That guy tells me to go to the first end because everything's chaos. But eventually I got my masks. And now I have plenty of them.
No, you got to stock up. Don't lose your masks.
Oh yeah, I keep extras all over the place.
They're the new sunglasses. You can't lose sunglasses. It's very frustrating. You can't lose masks. That's all I find.
Well, we've got a program that takes journalists in Israel around to different events out in the field and to press conferences and things like that. And we've been doing everything by phone conference for the last, because nobody can do anything, and the journalists' bosses and their companies are being even more careful than the government because they don't want their employees getting sick. But it's finally starting to turn the corner. So the first thing we're doing is we're going to go out and buy just like crate loads of masks and hand sanitizer, so that when we do these press conferences, if any journalist forgets their mask, we've got tons of extras.
There you go.
That's the way to do it. So
Yeah.
what, I guess we're wrapping this up here. What should we know because New York City today is entering phase 1, which phase 1 is confusing because it means something different for every single state. It's not, they didn't make like a nationwide, what does phase 1 mean? What does phase 2 mean?
Do you have phases in Israel? Is that like a thing, or is that just like you open?
we sort of have barely controlled chaos. We do stuff and then we change our minds and then we sort of change the rules a little bit. And I would think that we were in terrible shape, except then I look around the world and I realize, well, you know what? We're actually kind of doing better than a lot of places. So somehow, and this is really what I was saying about the Israeli army, there's an element of chaos, but somehow it kind of works.
And do you think that because we don't have restaurants open here and you guys have restaurants open, is that like you have them outside seating? Like how are we supposed to, do we feel comfortable eating in restaurants in Israel? Do they go into restaurants?
Yeah, we're eating in restaurants. The waiters are wearing their masks. The customers obviously aren't, because you got to eat the food somehow. And the chefs aren't, because I guess you would just die in a professional kitchen if you're wearing a mask because it's so hot. But what they're doing is they don't fill all the tables. So you kind of have to, if it's a good restaurant, you have to make reservations because half the tables aren't going to be filled, so everyone stays spaced out. And, look, I've been doing it for a while. I haven't gotten sick, and I haven't heard of anyone getting sick from restaurants. I mean, at first I was really worried about food, but they say that, here's what you need to know. They say the most common way of transmission is through people talking and their air droplets get in their sort of spit droplets get in the air. That's the way things transmit, much more than through surfaces. So, you should wash your hands and everything, but the touching stuff isn't as much as being in a room with people. Transmits much more indoors than it does outdoors. And the other thing to know is when you start opening up, you're going to see a spike. That's to be expected. If your government is being smart, in this case, the state or the city government, as they see spikes in certain areas, you do good contact tracing. You close down the area specifically where there's an effect, whether it's a specific school or whatever it is, but without closing the entire city. And you want to look to see that the spike is a steady one and not an exponentially increasing one. And if you get all those things down, you're probably going to be okay. If you see a spike that starts increasing exponentially and you're not doing good contact tracing and shutting down in specific areas, then you're probably heading for a second wave and a full shutdown again.
And what about comedy? Do you know of anything? Are they doing stand-up over there?
Yeah, the important things. Forget schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, obviously, every comedian's got stuff going on their Instagram video and on YouTube. So you got that. But that's mostly just people trying to not be bored. But, venues, like going to see a show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as bad as opening a school or going to pray in synagogue. It's a bunch of people sitting in a room close together with circulating air. So that hasn't opened up yet at all, and I don't know when it will. But that'll probably be one of the last things to open.
I don't think it'll happen here until there's a vaccine that's widely available that everyone's getting.
I mean, are there bars in Israel? Are bars open or like? or you could just spaced out? Or,
yeah.
Like, how does? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, early on, bars were there was a rule early on that you could open restaurants and bars, but only for takeaway. So my friends are like, "Oh man, it's great. We went to this bar and we did takeaway and we brought." I'm like, "Why would you do takeaway at a bar? That's like saying I want to drink at home, but I'd like to pay 4 times as much for the beer as I would in a grocery store. So I'm going to go to the
it's a support.
So they had that going on. Now it's actually but now it's kind of getting back to normal. So people are going to bars and drinking there, and they're keeping the tables spaced a little more than usual.
Right.
So are you planning? I guess you can't travel, right?
I mean, you can travel within the country, and you can travel. Like I said, one of my employees just went home to London, and so he's clearly traveling. He sent a selfie of himself in the airport, and he was like the only person in the entire departures hall. So there is traveling, but there's restrictions, and it's not easy. And I don't know exactly how it works, but it does work in some way or another.
Got it.
But it seems kind of pointless, though, in this day and age.
What are you going to do when you get there?
Yeah.
You know?
Where's it you're going to go? I mean, the guy I'm talking about, he went because he hadn't seen his family in a while, and he was really missing them. But other than that, like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Like, you can go hang around in some other city where you can't do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, thanks for doing it. How can people find you online?
You can find us at honestreporting.com. That's our company. And if you want to check me out personally or send me a note, I'm Daniel Speaks Up, one word, on Twitter and on Instagram. So hit me up, and thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, one last thing I just want to ask you real quick is, with Playboy magazine went out of business, which is your former company in Israel. You tried to bring Playboy. So how do you feel about that? Have you shed any tears? You said a Kaddish, or you just
I shed a lot of tears for quite a while, and the funny thing was, years later, I actually ran into a guy who's become a good friend, who's a big investor, and he wanted to invest in sort of a reboot, to do it a different way digitally, that it would work differently and it had better chance of success. But by then, the Playboy company had gotten all woke, and they were less into the international brands. So at the time I had the company, I didn't have the investor. Then I got the investor, and I didn't have the company.
No, but I meant the actual magazine. For those who don't know, is no more. I've heard the physical magazine. It's over. So
maybe
I'm breaking news. It's over.
It was gone, and then it gone. It was gone, and then it came back, and now it's gone again. Is that what happened?
It's gone. Yeah, it's gone. So sad times we live in.
I'm sorry to hear that. It had a good run for like 70 years, but yeah.
It would actually do well right now if they had them all. Like Playboy bunnies, but in masks. I feel like that would sell.
That's a genius idea.
Bring it back for 1 month.
One more day. Bring it back. Get your investor, Dan. Call him up.
All right, Daniel Pomerantz.
1 month of Playboy.
Thanks for doing it, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Stay safe in Israel.
Stay safe and healthy.
Yes, don't go around any schools. And
wear your mask.
We will see you, Cap. What should we do?
Let's play the music from the news.
Get to the news.
See you later, man.
See you guys.
See you, Dan. Thanks, dude.
All
right, I'll call you, Cap.
Yeah, the iWiFi is